This next book is getting out of the cosmos and now back into regular biology. It's called Insects, the Complete Illustrated World Encyclopedia of Insects. It's got over 650 arthropods and 750 special commissioned illustrations and photographs. So, if you're, this is just traditional biology. It's also part of astrobiology because we don't know what's off the planet, and you want to figure out, well, what is an alien out there? We got plenty of foreign species to study that could be possibilities, and you could run them through possibly computer simulations and stuff once we understand genetics and try to figure out, what possibly could be out there under certain circumstances. So it's good research because, and also what's the possibility you have to, since we have good data on all these insects, we also know what kind of habitats they like to stay in, so we start getting more data of Earth-like worlds out there. We start finding, be able to get data, we would possibly could know in advance as to what possible life on this planet would be out there. So I started out traditional biology, astrobiology starts getting into having to answer those questions. So here again, you're having to get away from Darwin's theory of evolution and try to figure out what is ET putting out there. Another thing about intelligent design theory is all these insects have been put in a catalog. We know what kind of environment they like. We can also take DNA samples and we can put it in a data bank, so we know what kind of DNA genetics is required for each one of these species, and all you have to do is be able to reprogram DNA and RNA from a single cell organism. You can get any of these. All you got to know is got to punch in what the DNA sequence is for any of these insects, and you can put them out there. So, is the story of Noah have an element of extraterrestrial truth in that he wasn't physically bringing the animals aboard an ark. He was actually bringing them aboard a spaceship and keeping DNA of all these species, and then all he had to do is have single cell organisms to actually create this when they got here, which is a possibility. It's a good example. It shows you the differences, the different types of antennas that you can have on insects. It's not just the look, it's also the antenna, some of the personal features. Their legs aren't all the same, their eyes are not all the same, and they just really can't explain these complex insecticide life forms who are supposed to have this common link from Darwin's theory of evolution. How do you get these complex organisms that just don't match up? Because they were all created by design. There's no way, there's no link between all these insects and stuff. They're just too complex. Here's a good example, the different types of mouth parts. It's not just the legs, it's also the mouth parts, it's the eyes that makes up the difference. Do we have the best eyesight? A fly has over 360-degree look. So, is our eyesight the best? No, it has its advantages and disadvantages, but there's a lot of wavelengths and stuff that we can't see that insects can see, or they can also better at seeing motion. So, flies are very, very, very good at sensing motion, or a praying mantis, and a praying mantis can detect an insect or something, a prey moving, and it can position itself to make a strike So its eyes are very sensitive to motion. So, you know, even more than what our eyesight is. And they started, all this took a long time of data. It was very tedious data. And the people that did all that data research, you know, will go by in the history books. You know, most people would never know they even existed. It took a lot of people going out there to find all these arthropods and all these different insects and stuff, and categorize them, and sit out there in harsh conditions. So you go out and get a biology degree, thinking you're going to work in a laboratory. That's only part of this. That's only part of the story. You have to go out in the jungles and stuff, and actually categorize all this data and stuff. And then they have one data bank that they categorized all that into. And you're talking, you know, several hundred years of research to categorize all that. You know, I would question is if you went out in the spaceship to the different planets out there, would you discover all these insects being out there? Is it, since they were put out here by ET, obviously, but is that what they do on all the planets? That's a good astrobiology question. Is that, you know, is it really necessary in the Gaia formula to have all these insects out there, or is it just that ET got bored and wanted to play zoo and, you know, create new insects and stuff just for the hell of it? You know, it's hard to get your clue out and try to think like ET and thinking of why they put all these species out here and what this planet's been used for. But it does give clues. You know, as I said earlier, there's a lot of work going on in the Milky Way galaxy, and it's putting new solar systems and stuff going on. So maybe they want to use this planet as a kind of a similar, kind of a zoo-like, to figure out what they want to put out there. But each one of these insects is no different from an artist sitting in front of an easel and actually painting something or designing something. It is art, and a lot of times, you know, when ET has the ability to do that too. There's a good picture of the different species of flies and stuff. Not all of them have the same kind of eyesight. They got different colors. Talks about flies' habitats, what kind of habitats they like. They had to follow these insects around and discover what they eat, what they need for a habitat, what they need to actually survive out there. Butterflies are one of those phenomena. They got real big wings. They can glide. They're insects that can actually fly for long periods of time. So Darwin's sort of evolution never kind of has really explained that, why some insects are just walkers and the other ones are actually flyers, and what actually created that other than design. Bees are a part of that too. Bees have a very sophisticated nesting ability, and they have ability to create their own version of a city. So they can't really explain that either, as to why bees are are just part of the insect world, and they have a very complex system of congregation. Same way with ants. Ants can actually build mounds and stuff, and they can build their own version of the hive and actually congregate in it. Here again, it's an example of design. Here's mayflies and stoneflies. These are used by a lot of fishermen for fishing for trout. A lot of people that like to fish for trout like to study stoneflies. They've created lures from them. Dragonflies, and You get into damselflies, you get these long tails and you get these bright colors. Here is an example of a species that's very similar, but you got different colors, you got different, you got 4 wings instead of having 1 wing, 2 wings like a butterfly. You get actually separate wings and stuff. So here's an example of a species that was created by a Pacific design. Then you get into praying mantises and other insects that supplement their diet by eating other insects. So they are predators besides just leaves. And that's a species of its own self in different species that are part-time they're predators and part-time they're eating on leaves and stuff. These are interesting stick insects. Those are hard to find out there because they're good camouflage. But their real long, fragile bodies enable them to run around on trees and stuff. Over taking flight, they can actually transfer across a tree in vegetation fairly quickly with their long legs and body. There's a good example of the different kinds of beetles. The Egyptians put a lot of beetles on their pyramid structures and stuff. They looked at them as kind of sacred, and they noticed they had different colors and stuff. The beetles may have been a good example of advanced civilization actually creating them. May have been part of the
Welcome to the
Egyptians'
StarWars.com 10, a feature where the Star Wars... Unfamiliar yet strange. Plus, it's really, really fun to impersonate.
So there's lots of good. There's centipedes. There's centipedes in here. Centipedes can move across the ground fairly quickly. You know, it has lots of legs, very characteristics of legs and stuff. Here's a good picture of cadflies and insects and different kinds of insects. Here's a picture of millipedes. You know, they're similar to worms, but they have legs. They've developed legs. So here's a good example of design. Spiders. You know, tarantulas are strictly predators. They just eat other insects. That was also part of design, controlling insect numbers. They could create spiders to control the number of flying insects out there. So here again you have somebody that's got a lot of data and knows, you know, knows kind of how to regulate that a little bit. Is what ET was putting together when they put this planet together. There's some different Chinese praying mantises. There's an Indian praying mantis. Those insects are all over the world. Some insects you'll find only in certain places in our world. So it's not always evenly distributed. You only find certain kinds out there, and now this is pretty extensive book, because every a lot of these insects, it talks about their habitat, what they like to eat, how big they get. That tells about their wingspan, if there is any food, tells you what their food is. So you got a lot of good information and data and a pictorial from this book. So if you're a researcher or you really want to understand the insect world, this is really a pretty good book for understanding that world.